Still no deal. Uncertainty continues over who will form the next government in the UK. And resuming the rescue operation in a Russian mine where more than 80 people remain trapped after 2 explosions, killing 12. Plus, oil giant BP considers the next step after its first attempt to cap a gushing oil well in the Gulf of Mexico runs into trouble. Well, for days, Faisal Shahzad, accused of plotting last week's attempted car bomb attack in New York's Times Square, was being called a lone wolf. But now, top government officials are describing him as the first identified agent of the Pakistani Taliban operating inside the United States. In television interviews on Sunday, top Obama administration officials accused the Taliban of sending Shahzad on his mission.
Well, I can say that the evidence that we've now developed shows that the Pakistani Taliban has directed this plot. We know that they helped facilitate it. We know that they helped direct it. And I suspect that we are going to come up with evidence that shows they helped to finance it. They were intimately involved in this plot.
Now, Holder and White House advisor John Brennan said Pakistan is cooperating in the investigation to find Shahzad's alleged collaborators.
What we have been able to understand so far is that he was captured by this murderous rhetoric of Al-Qaeda and the TTP that looks at the United States as an enemy. And what we are trying to do is to determine now exactly who helped him, who worked with him, and making sure that we're able to uncover and then to address successfully these individuals who are trying to carry out other attacks. Making a lot of progress. I'm confident that we're going to continue to make additional progress and uncover those individuals who collaborated with him.
Well, U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton also praised Pakistani authorities, but said her government expected more cooperation.
And it's been a real sea change in the commitment we've seen from the Pakistani government. We want more. We expect more. We've made it very clear that if, heaven forbid, an attack like this that we can trace back to Pakistan were to have been successful, there would be very severe consequences.
What do you mean exactly by that?
Well, I think I'll let that speak for itself.
Well, Holder also said that in terrorism cases, the Obama administration wants Congress to loosen the so-called Miranda rule, which requires suspects to be told of their rights before being interrogated. Well, joining us now is Arsalan Iftikhar, an international rights lawyer. What concerns you most when you hear the U.S. Attorney General saying that he thinks it may be time to take a new look at Miranda rights and when they should or should not be applied?
Well, the Miranda rights are an important part of civil and constitutional rights ever since 1966 in a landmark Supreme Court decision called Arizona v. Miranda, in which essentially the court ruled that when someone is arrested or in custody of the police, they have to be told of their self-incrimination rights and their right to legal counsel before any evidence or information that is gleaned from them can be admissible in the court of law.
And of course, in this case, we now know that that was not applied to the suspect Faisal Shahzad until a number of interviews had been conducted before he was read his rights. What is troubling about that? Is it that perhaps a snap decision was made about his guilt or innocence, or what is the concern? Well,
the concern is that obviously if somebody is given their Miranda rights and ultimately then gives actionable intelligence, not only is that intelligence actionable, but it is also admissible in the trial against them. And so if you don't read somebody their Miranda rights, essentially any intelligence that you gain thereafter will not be allowed in court, and thus would make it harder for a conviction. And so it's very important that we maintain the American justice system and the current rule of law that the Supreme Court has set down for the last 40+ years.
But this administration is arguing that these are different times. 2010 is different than 40 years ago.
Right.
There is an international terrorism threat, and that some suspects may, in the interest of public safety, need to be treated differently.
Well, and the Supreme Court has actually allowed for that. There's something called the public safety exception, which essentially would allow for, worst case scenario, a ticking bomb scenario, where a person who is in custody would not have to be read their Miranda rights under this public safety exception if there was extenuating circumstances like a ticking bomb scenario.
Is there a concern, though, that perhaps racial profiling is going to factor into all of this, and that people are going to make a determination about whether or not to read rights or not based on a person's appearance, their country of origin, etc.?
Well, racial profiling is something that the American, Muslim, Arab, and South Asian communities have experienced time and time again after 9/11. You know, we had the Bali, Madrid, London bombings, and the Times Square foiled bomb plot is just the most recent in the line of that. And so racial profiling really is nothing new in this scenario. What is new is that, you know, essentially we're trying to take nearly 50 years of constitutional law and trying to tweak it and loosen it so that things might not be admissible in court, and which would make for a much harder conviction.
But things are complicated here by the fact that although Faisal Shahzad was born in Pakistan, he is a U.S. citizen.
Right.
And so is perhaps there another way of getting to the ultimate goal that the administration has, which is trying to find information that will protect U.S. citizens? Could someone be declared an enemy combatant or something along those lines that might allow for a longer interrogation period?
That's actually a very good question, Kimberly. On both fronts, you know, he was read his Miranda rights and then gave actionable intelligence, which is great for the American legal system, because not only do we get actionable intelligence from Faisal Shahzad, but now that information can be used in a court of law. Secondly, we've seen a lot of political grandstanding, you know, most recently with Senator Joe Lieberman in introducing legislation trying to strip citizenship from people like Faisal Shahzad. Sadly, senators like that are only pandering to fear-mongering and don't actually know the law, which actually states in the Immigration and Naturalization Act that only a person themselves can renounce their own citizenship. And so, you know, we are a country that is based on the rule of law, and we have to make sure that that law is uniformly associated to all people, regardless of their race, religion, or socioeconomic status.
All right, Arsalan Iftikhar, we really do appreciate you joining us and
Thank you,
speaking in on
Kimberly.
this. Thanks. All right, security officials in Pakistan say at least 10 people have been killed in an airstrike on a compound in North Waziristan. 2 missiles reported to have been fired by a U.S. drone hit the home of a local tribesman. Officials say fighters and civilians were among the dead. Elsewhere in Pakistan, the military command said its forces killed 15 Taliban-linked fighters. Germany is lending Greece more than $28 billion. That's 1/5 of that Eurozone bailout package for the debt-ridden country. But many Germans are not happy about that, and they have now punished Chancellor Angela Merkel. Her center-right